Hey everyone, hope you're doing great. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll dive into what if Naruto awakened a power that even the sage feared. Smash that subscribe button, and be sure to peek at the description below. Let's begin. The sound of the waterfall was a deafening roar, a constant, thundering percussion that hammered against the chest. It was the heartbeat of the Valley of the End, the border of the Fire Nation, a place where history had been carved into the very bedrock of the world. Two colossal statues stood like titans frozen in time, Hashirama Senju, the first Hokage, and Madara Uchiha, the ghost of the past. Their stone hands were locked in an eternal seal of reconciliation, or perhaps, mutual destruction. Beneath the spray and the mist, two boys stood on the precipice of destiny. Naruto Uzumaki gasped for air, his lungs burning as if he had swallowed fire. The water around his ankles was cold, but the chakra boiling inside him was molten lead. He wiped a streak of blood from his chin, his blue eyes burning with a desperate, stubborn refusal to accept reality. Opposite him stood Sasuke Uchiha. But it wasn't the Sasuke he knew. This creature was warped, twisted by the curse seal of heaven. His skin was gray, his hair long and savage, and from his back sprouted two grotesque, hand-like wings that twitched with malicious intent. The darkness of Orochimaru's influence dripped off him like oil. Is this it, Naruto? Sasuke's voice was distorted, a rasping overlay of his own voice and something decidedly inhuman. He stood atop the head of Madara, looking down with a mixture of pity and contempt. Are you finally done? Or do you still think you can bring me back to a village I have already outgrown? Naruto straightened his posture, ignoring the screaming protest of his bruised muscles. He clenched his fists so hard his knuckles turned white. I told you, Naruto shouted, his voice cracking over the roar of the falls. I'm going to break every bone in your body if that's what it takes. I'm not letting you go to Orochimaru. You possess a unique kind of stupidity, Sasuke mused, raising his hand. The air began to vibrate. The distinct, high-pitched chirping of 1,000 birds began to fill the valley. Lightning coalesced in his palm, but under the influence of the curse seal, it was no longer the brilliant blue of the standard Chidori. It was black, a dark, flaring obsidian light that crackled with the sorrow of a severed bond. You don't understand, Naruto. I am not running away. I am moving forward. And you are just an anchor. Naruto closed his eyes for a fleeting second. He reached deep inside, past the pain, past the exhaustion, plunging his consciousness into the sewer of his mind. He needed power. He needed the fox. Lend me your chakra, Naruto demanded internally. I need to stop him. Usually, the Nine Tails would mock him. It would jeer, demand a tribute, or laugh at his weakness. But today, the response was immediate. A surge of red, bubbling chakra flooded Naruto's system. It was aggressive, corrosive, and hot. Naruto's eyes snapped open. The pupils were vertical slits. The whisker marks on his cheeks deepened and grew jagged. A cloak of red energy erupted from his skin, forming the outline of a fox with a single tail swaying ominously behind him. The water beneath his feet hissed, evaporating instantly upon contact with the heat of the Biju's hate. Forward? Naruto growled, his voice now layered with the guttural roar of the Kyuubi. You're walking into a nightmare, Sasuke. I won't let you, then try to stop me. Sasuke launched himself from the statue. He was a blur, a streak of gray and black lightning. He closed the distance in a heartbeat, his wings slamming into Naruto's midsection. The impact was like a cannonball. Naruto was sent skipping across the water, skipping like a stone, before he dug his clawed hands into the surface of the lake, skidding to a halt. Naruto roared, the chakra arm on his back extending, stretching like rubber to grab Sasuke. Sasuke banked midair, his Sharingan spinning wildly, tracking the erratic movements of the demon cloak. He sliced through the chakra arm with a Chidori-infused kick, the black lightning neutralizing the red chakra for a split second. They clashed in the center of the lake, a collision of taijutsu that was too fast for the normal eye to track. Shockwaves rippled out, shattering the surface tension of the water, sending geysers shooting 50 feet into the air. Fist met palm. Knee met elbow. Naruto was fighting on instinct, driven by the rage of the fox and his own desperate need to save his friend. He swiped his claws, tearing through Sasuke's shirt, drawing blood. Sasuke retaliated with a fireball jutsu at point-blank range, the flames engulfing Naruto, only for the demon cloak to whip the fire away like a solid object. "You're relentless!" Sasuke yelled, spinning in the air and driving his heel into Naruto's shoulder. Naruto took the hit, his body sinking into the water, but he used the momentum to spring back up, uppercutting Sasuke into the air. "Because I'm your friend. Friendship makes you weak." Sasuke screamed back, his face contorted. "It makes you hesitate." It made Itachi hesitate. "I will not make the same mistake." Sasuke flapped his wings, gaining altitude. He looked down at the orange-clad ninja, the boy he had once called a loser, the boy who had become his rival, his brother, and now, his obstacle. He felt a pang of regret buried deep under the ice of his hatred. He had to kill Naruto. It was the only way to awaken the Manjikyu Sharingan. It was the price of power. "It ends here, Naruto," Sasuke whispered to himself. He raised his hand high. The sky darkened. Storm clouds, summoned by the heat of his fire style earlier, began to swirl directly above the valley. Lightning flickered, drawn to Sasuke's hand. The Chidori screamed louder, growing in size until it was a mass of black electricity the size of a boulder. Down below, Naruto panted. The red cloak bubbled. He felt the fox's power reaching its limit for this vessel. His skin was burning. But he couldn't stop. He held out his right hand. The red chakra swirled, compressing, rotating. A clone appeared for a microsecond to help form the shell, then vanished. The vermilion Rasengan was born. It was a ball of erratic, violent power, the color of blood and sunset. "Sasuke!" Naruto screamed, his voice tearing at his throat. "Naruto!" Sasuke roared back. They moved simultaneously. Sasuke dove from the sky, gravity and wing thrust accelerating him to terminal velocity. He was a falling star of black lightning. Naruto launched himself upward, using the chakra tail as a spring. He was a rising sun of red destruction. The world seemed to slow down. The rain droplets hung suspended in the air. The roar of the waterfall faded into a dull drone. As they closed the distance, their eyes met. In that fraction of a second, memories flashed between them. The academy, the bell test, the land of waves, the Chunin exams. Then, they collided. The Chidori met the Rasengan. In any other timeline, in any other iteration of this story, the two energies would have struggled for dominance. They would have created a sphere of blinding white light that would engulf the valley. They would have destroyed the statues. Sasuke would have stood over a defeated Naruto, spared him on a whim, and walked away. But not today. Today, the seal on Naruto's stomach, the 8 trigram seal designed by Minato Namikaze, was subjected to a unique stress test. Naruto was pushing more chakra than he ever had. Sasuke's Chidori, fueled by the natural energy of the curse seal, was striking the exact point where Naruto's chakra network connected to the seal. And deep, deep within the darkness of the seal, something older than the fox woke up. It happened at the moment of impact. The vermilion Rasengan didn't explode. It fractured. A sound tore through the valley, not a boom, but a sickening crack, like a pane of glass shattering under deep water. It was the sound of physics breaking. The red chakra of the Rasengan turned instantly, terrifyingly gray. Then it turned black. Not the black of Sasuke's Chidori, which was simply dark light. This was Vantablack. It was the absence of light. It was a hole in reality. Sasuke's eyes widened, his Sharingan spinning frantically, trying to analyze the jutsu. What is? His thought was cut short by a sensation he had never felt before. Cold. Absolute, biting cold that bypassed his skin and froze the marrow in his bones. The black sphere in Naruto's hand expanded. It didn't push Sasuke away. It didn't burn him. It ate the Chidori. Sasuke watched in horror as the lightning of his strongest techniques simply ceased to exist. It didn't dissipate, it was deleted. The blackness swallowed the energy, and then it touched Sasuke's hand. Arg! Sasuke screamed, snatching his hand back. He kicked off Naruto's chest in a panic, flapping his wings frantically to gain distance. He tumbled through the air, crashing onto the surface of the lake, skidding backward until he hit the rock wall beneath Madara's feet. He looked at his hand. The tips of his fingers, the hardened, clawed fingers of the cursed seal level 2, were gone. There was no blood. No wound. They ended in a perfect, smooth surface, as if he had been a drawing and someone had taken an eraser to the paper. What? Sasuke gasped, his breath misting in the sudden drop in temperature. What the hell is that? He looked up at Naruto. Naruto was hovering in the air where they had clashed. But the red cloak was gone. The one-tailed transformation had vanished. Naruto was suspended in a sphere of silence. Around him, the rain didn't fall. The water droplets that entered a 3-meter radius around his body simply vanished. The air was gray and stagnant. Naruto's feet touched the water. Hiss. There was no splash. The water didn't ripple. Where his sandals touched the lake, a perfect circle of water disappeared, creating a depression that the surrounding lake rushed to fill, only for that water to vanish too. Naruto was walking on a void, sinking slowly as the matter beneath him was erased from existence. Slowly, Naruto lifted his head. Sasuke felt his heart stop. The killer intent he had felt from Orochimaru, the freezing terror he had felt from Itachi, none of it compared to this. Naruto's face was blank. Slack. Devoid of emotion. His whisker marks were pitch black. But his eyes, the blue was gone. The red of the kyuubi was gone. The scale was black, and the iris was a ring of pale, gray light. He looked like a corpse that had seen the end of the universe. Sasuke. Naruto's voice was a whisper, but it carried across the valley as if he were shouting directly into Sasuke's ear. It sounded hollow, like wind blowing through a tomb. Sasuke scrambled backward, his back pressing against the cold stone of the statue. The cursed seal on his neck was throbbing, screaming at him. Run! Run! Predator! Apex! Run! Stay back! Sasuke shouted, his voice trembling. He tried to summon another Chidori, but his chakra network sputtered. He felt drained. Just looking at Naruto made him feel heavy, as if his very soul was being siphoned off. Naruto took a step forward. The air around him distorted. The grass on the bank of the river turned to gray ash instantly. A bird caught in the downdraft flew too close to Naruto's head. It didn't die, it simply wasn't there anymore. Feathers, flesh, bone, gone. I bring you back. Naruto mumbled, extending a hand. The hand was covered in a swirling gray mist. Sasuke looked at that hand, then at his own missing fingertips. He realized with a clarity that cut through his insanity, if he touches me, I won't die. I will be unmade. Terror, raw and undiluted, flooded Sasuke's system. It overrode his vengeance. It overrode his desire for power. It was the primal instinct of a living thing facing the concept of death incarnate. Stay away from me! Sasuke shrieked. He turned. He didn't look back. He poured every ounce of his remaining chakra into his legs and wings. He scrambled up the cliff face, clawing at the rock, desperate to get away from the void that wore his friend's face. Naruto watched him go. He didn't chase. He couldn't. The power that had leaked through the seal was too much. It was heavy. It was hungry. Naruto fell to his knees. The water around him continued to vanish, creating a bowl in the lake. He coughed, and a cloud of gray dust expelled from his lips. The blackness in his eyes receded, the gray light fading. The sphere of silence collapsed. The roar of the waterfall returned, rushing back into his ears like a physical blow. Naruto slumped forward, face first into the dry crater he had created in the middle of the lake. The water rushed in to fill the void, crashing over his unconscious body, washing away the gray dust. Silence returned to the valley, save for the eternal roar of the falls. Inside the seal, the sewer system of Naruto's mind was usually a dank, humid place, echoing with the sound of dripping water and the low growl of the beast. Now it was frozen. The water on the floor had turned into jagged spikes of black ice. The walls were covered in frost. Behind the massive golden gates, Kurama, the nine-tailed demon fox, the strongest of the Bijou, a being of nearly infinite chakra and hatred, was pressed into the furthest corner of his cage. His massive tails were wrapped around himself, shivering. His ears were flattened against his head. The great seal on the gate, the paper tag that held the lock, had changed. The intricate kanji spiral was gone. In its place was a perfect, simple black circle. Kurama stared at the circle, his slit eyes wide with a fear he hadn't felt since the days of the Sage of Six Paths. No, this was worse. The sage had been powerful, but the sage was life. The sage was creation. This was the antithesis. Kurama looked at his own paws. The tips of his fur were turning gray. He could feel his chakra, his essence, his very life force, being pulled toward the gate. Not siphoned to be used, but pulled into a disposal. Naruto. The fox rumbled, his voice shaking. What have you done? You foolish brat. You've opened the door to the null, Kurama whimpered. He lay his head on his paws, trying to make himself small. For the first time in millennia, the Ninetales prayed. He prayed that the boy wouldn't die, because if Naruto died, the seal would break fully. And if the seal broke fully, Kurama wouldn't be released. He would be erased. 30 minutes later, the rain had started to fall in earnest. It was a cold, miserable drizzle that soaked through clothing and chilled the skin. Kakashi Hatake moved through the trees with the speed of a desperate man. Beside him ran Pakken, the pug sniffing the air frantically. The scent is confusing, boss, Pakken barked. It smells like rain, and blood, and burned ozone, and then nothing. Nothing? Kakashi asked, pushing his headband up to reveal the Sharingan. I mean nothing, Pakken clarified, slowing down. It's like the scent trail just falls off a cliff. I've never smelled an absence before. It's making my nose itch. They burst through the tree line and arrived at the valley of the end. Kakashi skidded to a halt on a tree branch, his eyes scanning the scene. He saw the devastation immediately. The statues were chipped and scarred from battle. The cliff face was scorched with fire marks. Sasuke, Kakashi whispered. He looked for his wayward student, but there was no sign of him. The trail led up the cliff and away, toward the sound. He got away, Pakken said softly. Kakashi cursed under his breath. He had failed. Again. Wait, Pakken said, pointing a paw toward the lake. There. Kakashi looked down. Floating in the water, drifting near the edge of the bank, was a flash of orange. Naruto! Kakashi leaped from the branch, landing on the water's surface. He sprinted toward his student. As he got closer, he noticed something strange about the environment. There was a section of the riverbank, perhaps 20 feet wide, that looked wrong. The grass wasn't flattened or burned. It was gone. The earth was perfectly smooth, gray, and dusty, as if it had been disintegrated down to the molecular level. A large rock near the water had a perfect spherical bite taken out of it, the edges smooth as glass. Kakashi felt a shiver run down his spine. What kind of jutsu does this? He reached Naruto. The boy was floating face down. Kakashi grabbed Naruto's jacket and flipped him over, dragging him onto the solid ground, avoiding the strange gray dust. Naruto! Naruto, wake up! Kakashi pressed 2 fingers to Naruto's neck to check for a pulse. Zzzt. A shock of static electricity snapped against Kakashi's fingers. He flinched, pulling his hand back. It wasn't a normal electric shock. It felt like touching dry ice. It burned with cold. What? Kakashi stared at his fingers. They were numb. He tried again, forcing himself to ignore the discomfort. He found a pulse. It was slow. Too slow. Thump. Thump. He's alive. Kakashi breathed a sigh of relief, though the tension didn't leave his shoulders. But barely. He began to check for injuries. The hole in Naruto's jacket from the Chidori was there, but when Kakashi looked at the skin underneath, his eye widened in confusion. There was a bruise. A nasty, dark purple bruise in the shape of a fist. But there was no puncture wound. There was no lightning burn. Sasuke used Chidori, Kakashi muttered to himself, analyzing the torn fabric. I see the scorch marks on the clothes. But the skin, it's like the jutsu didn't penetrate. Or it was stopped. He lifted Naruto's shirt to check the rest of his torso. Kakashi froze. The seal on Naruto's stomach was visible. Usually it was invisible unless Naruto molded chakra, but now it was etched into his skin like a black tattoo. But it was wrong. Kakashi had seen the 4th Hokage's seal before. He knew the intricate spiral pattern, the 8 trigrams. This was not a spiral. The ink had bled. The spiral had collapsed into itself, forming a thick, heavy black ring. A zero, and the skin around the seal was gray. Not bruised, but gray, like the dust on the riverbank. Veins of black extended from the seal, spiderwebbing out across Naruto's ribs. "Pakin," Kakashi said, his voice unusually grave. "Yeah, boss? We need to get him back to the village. Immediately. Do not let the others touch him." "Why? Is he contagious?" Kakashi looked at the gray dust on the bank, then at the black ring on Naruto's stomach. He remembered the feeling of cold static when he touched the boy's pulse. He looked at the water of the lake, which seemed to be shying away from Naruto's body, creating a tiny meniscus of separation. "I don't know," Kakashi said, lifting Naruto onto his back. He wrapped his hands in chakra to protect himself, just in case. "But this isn't normal chakra exhaustion. This feels like death." Kakashi took one last look at the direction Sasuke had fled. He felt a pang of failure, deep and bitter. He had lost one student to darkness, and the other. He looked at the gray veins on Naruto's chest. The other might have been lost to something much, much worse. With a flicker of movement, Kakashi vanished from the Valley of the End, racing against time, carrying a boy who had become a vessel for something the world had forgotten to fear. Konoha Hospital 2 days later, the harsh fluorescent lights of the intensive care unit buzzed overhead. It was a sound that usually comforted Tsunade Senju. It meant technology, it meant medicine, it meant a chance to save lives. Today, the sound was grating. The fifth Hokage stood over the hospital bed, her arms crossed, her brow furrowed so deeply it looked painful. Behind her stood Shizen, holding a clipboard, looking pale and nauseous. Jiraiya, the Toad Sage, leaned against the window frame, his usual jovial demeanor completely absent. On the bed lay Naruto. He was comatose. Monitors beeped steadily, tracking his heart rate and brain activity. But the wires connecting him to the machines were degrading. Every few hours, a nurse had to replace the adhesive pads because they would simply crumble into dust. "Explain it to me again," Tsunade said, her voice tight. "I've tried 3 times, Shizen said, her voice trembling. "Lord Hokage, every time I try to push medical chakra into his system to stimulate cell regeneration, the chakra disappears." "It dissipates?" Tsunade asked. "No," Shizen shook her head. "It doesn't dissipate into the air. It's eaten. The moment my green chakra touches his network, it turns gray and vanishes. It's like pouring water into a black hole. And I lose the sensation of my hand for an hour afterward," Shizen admitted, rubbing her right hand. "It feels like the nerves are being put to sleep." Tsunade gritted her teeth. She stepped forward. "Let me try." "Tsunade, wait," Jiraiya warned. "I am the greatest medic in the world, Jiraiya. If I can't heal a brat with exhaustion, I should turn in my title." Tsunade's hands glowed with the potent, concentrated turquoise chakra of the mystical palm technique. She placed her hands over Naruto's chest, directly over the strange black ring seal. "Heal," she commanded. The reaction was instantaneous. The moment Tsunade's chakra made contact with Naruto's skin, the black veins on his chest pulsed. A ripple of gray energy, the null, flared up to meet her. Crack! The sound of snapping static filled the room. Tsunade gasped and yanked her hands back. The green glow of her jutsu was extinguished instantly. She looked at her palms. The top layer of skin on her palms was gone. Not burned off, but simply missing, revealing the raw pink dermis underneath. "Profound," Tsunade whispered, staring at her hands in horror. "It didn't just reject the chakra. It attacked the source. It tried to follow the chakra stream back into my body." "That's what I feared," Jiraiya said heavily. He walked over to the bed, looking down at his godson. "You saw the seal?" Jiraiya asked. "I did," Tsunade replied, healing her own hands with a grimace. "It's the 8 trigrams, but it's mutated. Minato's design allowed for chakra to leak out from the Kyuubi to Naruto. This looks like it's pulling everything in." "I checked the scroll Minato left with the toads," Jiraiya said. "The key to the seal. When I tried to sync it with Naruto's stomach earlier, the scroll caught fire. Black fire." The room fell silent. The implications were terrifying. The seal was no longer a lock, it was a breach. What is happening to him, Jiraiya? Tsunade asked, her voice losing its edge, replaced by genuine worry for the boy she had come to see as a little brother. Jiraiya looked at Naruto's face. It was peaceful, but pale. The prophecy said one of my students would bring great change to the world, Jiraiya muttered. I always thought it meant peace or destruction through war. I thought it was Nagato. Then Minato. Then I hoped it was Naruto. He reached out, hovering a hand over the black circle. He could feel the cold radiating from it. But this, Jiraiya continued. This isn't chakra. Chakra connects us. It binds spiritual and physical energy. This power, it separates them. It breaks bonds. Jiraiya looked up at Tsunade, his eyes grim. I think, in his desperation to save Sasuke, Naruto reached for power. And he reached too deep. Past the fox. Past the seal. He touched the foundation of the container. The foundation? The void, Jiraiya said. The emptiness that exists where life does not. He didn't just break the seal, Tsunade. He broke the rules. On the bed, Naruto's finger twitched. The heart monitor skipped a beat. Beep. 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 Then silence. He's crashing. Shizen yelled. Get the crash cart. Tsunade ordered, charging up her chakra again, ignoring the risk. But before they could move, the monitor started again. Thump thump. Thump thump. It wasn't the electronic beep of the machine. The machine had died, its screen blank, its casing turning to gray dust. The sound was coming from Naruto's chest. A heavy, rhythmic beating that resonated in the air, vibrating the glass of the windows. Naruto's eyes opened. They were blue again. Bright cerulean blue. He blinked, looking up at the ceiling, then at Tsunade, then at Jiraiya. He looked confused, tired, and incredibly young. Granny? Pervy Sage? Naruto croaked, his voice raspy. Why is it so quiet? Tsunade let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. She leaned in. Naruto. You're in the hospital. The mission failed. Sasuke is gone. She expected tears. She expected shouting. She expected him to try and jump out of bed. Naruto lay there. He stared at the ceiling. I know, Naruto said softly. He sat up slowly. The blanket covering him slid off. Where the blanket had touched his skin, the fabric was threadbare and gray, disintegrating as it moved. Naruto looked at his hands. He flexed them. He ran away, Naruto said, his voice flat. He was scared. Scared of what, Naruto? Jiraiya asked gently. Of Orochimaru? Naruto turned his head. He looked at Jiraiya. For a second, just a split second, Jiraiya saw the gray ring in Naruto's pupils again. No, Naruto said. Of me. He clenched his fist. The air inside his palm hissed as it was compressed and erased. I tried to grab him, Naruto whispered. And I deleted his Chidori. I felt it. It tasted like ash. He looked up, tears finally forming in his eyes. But they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of confusion. Pervy Sage, what am I? Jiraiya didn't have an answer. He looked at the boy, the Jinchuriki, the prankster, the hero, and saw the shadow of something ancient looming over him. I don't know, kid, Jiraiya said softly. But we're going to figure it out. Outside the window, a crow landed on the sill. It peered through the glass with a red eye, observing. As Naruto looked at it, the glass fogged up with gray frost. The crow squawked in alarm and flew away, sensing the predator. The awakening was complete. The fracture had begun. And the shinobi world, obsessed with wars over eyes and beasts, had no idea that the real threat had just woken up in a hospital bed in Konoha. The world was too loud, yet paradoxically, completely silent. Naruto Uzumaki lay in the hospital bed, staring at the ceiling tiles. He had counted them 4 times. 144. There was a crack in tile number 72 that looked like a lightning bolt, or perhaps a snake. He closed his eyes, hoping to shut out the sensory overload, but the darkness behind his eyelids was no longer a comfort. It was a reminder. For the last 48 hours, Naruto had felt a sensation that defied description. It wasn't pain, though his body was bruised and battered from the fight at the valley. It wasn't exhaustion, though his chakra reserves felt strangely hollow. It was lightness. He felt untethered. It was as if gravity had decided to loosen its grip on him, just a fraction. When he inhaled, the air felt thin. When he exhaled, he felt like he was expelling more than just carbon dioxide. He was breathing out parts of himself. Naruto? The voice was soft, hesitant. It belonged to Sakura. Naruto opened his eyes. Sakura Haruno sat in the chair beside his bed. She looked terrible. Her eyes were red and puffy, dark circles bruising the skin beneath them. She was peeling an apple, the skin coming off in a long, spiraling red ribbon. "Hey, Sakura-chan," Naruto said. His voice sounded rusty, scraping against his throat. "You've been staring at the ceiling for an hour," Sakura said, her voice trembling slightly. She sliced a piece of the apple. "Here. You need to eat. You haven't touched your food." Naruto looked at the slice of apple offered to him. It looked crisp, juicy, full of life. He reached out. "Thanks," he muttered. As his fingertips brushed against the apple slice, a strange phenomenon occurred. It happened in a microsecond, too fast for a civilian to see, but Sakura, a budding medical nin, caught it. The moment Naruto's skin touched the fruit, the bright yellow-white flesh of the apple turned a dull, sickly brown. It didn't rot in the conventional sense, it desiccated. The moisture vanished, the structure collapsed. By the time Naruto put the slice in his mouth, it was a dry, flavorless husk. He chewed it mechanically. It tasted like dust. Is it good?" Sakura asked, staring at the remaining apple in her hand as if it might bite her. Naruto swallowed the dry lump. He forced a smile. It felt like wearing a mask made of porcelain, fragile and cold. "Yeah. It's great. Thanks, Sakura-chan." Sakura didn't smile back. She looked at his hand. "Naruto, when you touched it." "I'm just tired," Naruto interrupted quickly. He pulled his hand back under the sheet. He could feel the bedsheet fibers reacting to his skin, a subtle, microscopic fraying, as if the cotton was aging decades in seconds. Did anyone find him?" The air in the room grew heavy. Sakura dropped her gaze to her lap. The knife in her hand stilled. "No," she whispered. Kakashi-sensei and the tracker unit went to the border. The trail ended. Pakken said the scent just stopped. Like he vanished into thin air. "He didn't vanish," Naruto said. His voice was flat, devoid of the usual fiery optimism. "He crossed over to Orochimaru. We'll get him back," Sakura said, a sudden burst of desperate energy. She looked up, eyes swimming with fresh tears. "Next time, we'll go together. I'll get stronger and..." "Sakura." Naruto said her name softly, but it stopped her mid-sentence. He looked at her with those new eyes, blue yes, but lacking the inner light they once held. The ring of gray around his pupils seemed to rotate slowly. "Don't," he said. "Don't promise that." "Why?" "Because," Naruto looked at his hand, hidden under the sheet. "I don't think I can touch him again without killing him." Sakura froze. "What do you mean?" "Naruto, you're strong, but you wouldn't kill Sasuke-kun. You promised." "I know I promised," Naruto whispered. "But I don't think it's up to me anymore." The door to the room slid open with a sharp clack. Tsunade strode in. The Godame Hokage looked as if she hadn't slept in a week. Her usually immaculate green Hiyori was wrinkled, and there was a tightness around her mouth that signaled danger. Behind her trailed Shizen, clutching a thick stack of medical files, looking terrified. "Sakura, out," Tsunade commanded. Not unkindly, but with absolute authority. "Master, I was just checking on." "I need to conduct a deeper examination of the patient," Tsunade said. "It involves S-rank secrecy protocols." "Out. Now." Sakura looked from Tsunade to Naruto. She stood up, placing the half-peeled apple on the bedside table. I'll come back later, Naruto." "Yeah. Later." Sakura left, the door clicking shut behind her. The room seemed to shrink. Tsunade didn't waste time with pleasantries. She walked to the side of the bed and ripped the sheet off. "Hey!" Naruto protested weakly. "Quiet," Tsunade snapped. She bit her thumb, smeared blood on her palm, and slammed her hand onto the floor. Summoning jutsu. A puff of smoke cleared to reveal Katsuyu, the small slug summon. "Lady Tsunade?" The slug chirped. "Katsuyu, I need you to attach yourself to Naruto's chest. I need a real-time analysis of his chakra network at the cellular level. My medical jutsu is being rejected. I need a biological interface. Understood. The slug slithered up the bed frame and onto Naruto's chest. Naruto flinched. Cold. It's not cold, Naruto, Tsunade said, pulling a chair close. Your body temperature is running at 102 degrees, yet your skin feels like ice to the touch. That's a paradox. Now hold still. Tsunade activated a diagnostic jutsu, her hands glowing with mystical green light. But she didn't touch him. She held her hands 6 inches above his chest, sweating. Shizen, read the latest chakra spectral analysis, Tsunade ordered, her eyes fixed on Naruto's stomach. Shizen fumbled with the papers. Yes, Lady Tsunade. According to the analysis conducted by the barrier team and the autopsy corps, who analyzed the blood sample, Naruto's chakra is currently in a state of autophagy. English, Shizen, Naruto grumbled, staring at the green light hovering over him. It's eating itself, Tsunade said bluntly. Normal chakra, Naruto, is a combination of physical energy and spiritual energy. It is created, it flows, it is used, and it replenishes. It is the energy of life. She lowered her hands an inch. The green light began to flicker. Wisps of gray smoke rose from Naruto's chest, reaching up to meet the green light. Your chakra isn't doing that anymore, Tsunade continued. Your network is producing chakra, but the moment it is produced, something else consumes it. A secondary energy source. Something that sits in the pit of your stomach. The fox? Naruto asked. No, Tsunade said grimly. We know the Kyuubi's chakra. It's red, hateful, corrosive. This is colorless. It is the absence of color. She took a deep breath. Katsuyu, report. The slug's voice echoed in their minds. Lady Tsunade, this is distressing. The boy's cells are in a constant state of apoptosis, cell death, and immediate, violent regeneration. It appears the Ninetales is pumping massive amounts of yang chakra into his system to keep him alive, but this dark influence is devouring it. Is it a poison? Tsunade thought back. No. It feels like gravity. It is pulling his biological functions into a singularity. If the fox stops providing chakra for even a minute, the boy will collapse into dust. Tsunade pulled her hands away, dispelling the jutsu. She slumped back in her chair. So I'm dying? Naruto asked. He didn't sound scared. He sounded curious. No, Tsunade said fiercely. I'm the Hokage. You don't die until I say you die. But Naruto, we have a problem. I can't heal you. Naruto looked at his hands. Because the medical chakra turns gray? Because your body interprets external chakra as matter to be erased, Tsunade corrected. If I tried to use a major healing jutsu on you right now, your body wouldn't just reject it. It would eat the jutsu, and then it would try to eat me through the chakra connection. You are walking anti-magic, Naruto. Anathema, Shizen whispered from the corner. What? Naruto asked. Anathema, Shizen repeated, looking at him with wide, fearful eyes. Something that is detested, set apart, or cursed. In the old texts before Nishu, they spoke of forces that opposed nature. You are becoming something that nature cannot recognize. Tsunade shot Shizen a warning glare. That's enough. Naruto, you are discharged. Discharged? Naruto sat up. But you just said I'm a walking disaster. Staying in the hospital won't help, Tsunade said, standing up and smoothing her robes. We can't treat you with medicine. Your body breaks down the chemical compounds of pills before they hit your bloodstream. We can't treat you with jutsu. The only thing keeping you alive is your own willpower and the tenet in your gut. She looked him in the eye. Go home, Naruto. Take a shower. Put on fresh clothes. Don't train. Don't mold chakra. Just exist. Jiraiya will be here this evening. He has ideas. Naruto swung his legs over the side of the bed. His feet touched the cold tile. Okay, he said. He stood up. He felt a wave of dizziness, but he pushed it down. He grabbed his orange jacket from the hook. It was torn, stained with blood and mud. He put it on. It felt heavy. Granny Tsunade? What? If I'm anti-magic, and everything is made of chakra, do I even belong here anymore? Tsunade didn't answer immediately. She looked at the boy who dreamed of being Hokage, the boy who was the village's loud, bright son. You belong where I say you belong, she said firmly, though her voice lacked its usual conviction. Now go. Walking through Konoha had always been a gauntlet for Naruto Uzumaki. Since he was a child, he had learned to navigate the streets by reading eyes. He knew the look of hatred, the sharp, burning glare of the adults who remembered the attack 12 years ago. He knew the look of disdain, the curled lips, the whispers behind hands. He knew the look of pity, the rare, softened glance from those who saw an orphan, not a monster. He stepped out of the hospital doors and into the midday sun. The village was bustling. Merchants were shouting, children were running, ninja were leaping across rooftops. Naruto shoved his hands into his pockets and began the walk to his apartment. He braced himself. He hunched his shoulders, preparing for the whispers. Demon. Brat. Monster. But they didn't come. He walked past the fruit stall. The owner, a man who usually chased Naruto away with a broom, was arranging oranges. As Naruto approached, the man didn't look up. He didn't glare. Instead, he stopped moving. He stood perfectly still, his eyes fixed on a spot on the wall, his breath held. Naruto passed him. The man exhaled and resumed stacking, his hands trembling slightly, as if he had just avoided a falling rock. Naruto frowned. He turned a corner onto the main street. A group of women were gossiping near a flower shop. As Naruto's shadow fell over them, the conversation died instantly. They didn't turn to look at him, they stepped back. It wasn't a conscious step, it was a primal recoil. They pressed themselves against the shop window, giving him a wide berth, their eyes averted. It was quiet. Usually, the air around Naruto was thick with emotional intent, hatred, annoyance, fear. Now, the air was simply empty. He passed the playground. Children were playing ninja. A ball rolled toward the fence where Naruto was walking. A little boy ran to get it. The boy looked up. He saw Naruto. In the past, the parents would have snatched the child away, yelling at Naruto to stay back. The boy stopped 5 feet away. He looked at Naruto. The child's face went pale. He didn't scream. He simply abandoned the ball. He turned around and walked back to his mother, burying his face in her skirt. The mother didn't yell at Naruto. She just held her son tight, staring at the ground until Naruto passed. Naruto stopped. He looked at the ball, a bright red rubber ball resting against the fence. They aren't looking at me, Naruto realized with a sinking heart. They're acting like I'm a natural disaster. You don't get mad at a hurricane. You just get out of the way. The hatred had been painful, but it was human. It was a connection. Even a negative bond is a bond. This was isolation. He felt a sudden, desperate need for normalcy. He needed something familiar. Something warm. Ramen. He changed direction, walking faster. The crowd parted for him like water around a stone. No one bumped his shoulder. No one blocked his path. It was the loneliest walk of his life. He arrived at Ichiraku Ramen. The flaps of the stand fluttered in the breeze. Hey, old man! Naruto called out, trying to inject his usual volume into his voice. He pushed through the curtains and sat on the stool. 1 miso pork, extra chashu. Tucci was facing away, chopping green onions. Ayam was washing dishes. At the sound of Naruto's voice, Tucci froze. The knife slipped from his hand and clattered onto the cutting board. Naruto? Tucci turned around. His face, usually crinkled in a welcoming smile, was pale. He looked at Naruto, and for a second, his eyes widened, focusing not on Naruto's face, but on the space around him. Welcome back, Tucci said. His voice was strained. We heard the mission went bad. Yeah, well, you know me. Naruto grinned, but it felt wrong. His facial muscles felt stiff. Can't keep me down. Just need some ramen to recharge. Right. Right, of course. Tucci turned back to the pot. His movements were jerky. Naruto watched him. Tucci was the one person in the village who had never treated him like a monster. He had always been kind. Tucci placed the bowl on the counter. His hand shook. A splash of broth spilled over the rim. Sorry, Tucci muttered, pulling his hand back quickly, rubbing his fingers as if they were cold. It's okay. Naruto grabbed the chopsticks. He snapped them apart. Itadakimasu. He slurped the noodles loudly. He shoved the pork into his mouth. He waited for the explosion of flavor, the salty, savory comfort that had defined his childhood. It didn't come. The noodles felt like wet string. The pork felt like rubber. The broth was just hot water. Naruto chewed slowly. He swallowed. It has no taste, he thought, panic rising in his chest. Why does it have no taste? He looked down at the bowl. The steam rising from it was gray. As he held the chopsticks, the broth around the noodles seemed to lose its color, turning a murky, translucent hue. Is it okay? Ayam asked from the corner. She was hugging herself, staying far away from the counter. Naruto looked at them. He saw the fear in Ayam's eyes. He saw the trembling in Tucci's back. They weren't afraid of him. They were afraid for themselves. Their instincts were screaming that a predator was in the room. Naruto put the chopsticks down. It's the best, as always, Naruto lied. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a crumpled bill. He placed it on the counter. Keep the change. He stood up and walked out before they could see the tears welling in his eyes. He didn't look back. If he had, he would have seen Tucci pick up the bowl and immediately drop it into the trash, shivering as the cold from the ceramics seeped into his bones. Naruto's apartment was dark. He didn't turn on the lights. He kicked off his sandals and walked into the single room that served as his bedroom, kitchen, and living space. Dust motes danced in the sliver of light coming from the street lamp outside. Naruto sat on the edge of his bed. He looked at the bedside table. There sat the picture of Team 7. Kakashi with his eye smile, Sakura smiling brightly, Naruto grinning like an idiot, and Sasuke, looking bored but present. Naruto reached out to touch the photo. Don't, a voice rumbled in his head. Naruto froze. Kurama, do not touch it, the Nine-Tails warned. The voice was different. It wasn't the booming, hateful roar that usually echoed in the sewer. It sounded tired, resigned. If you touch it with intent, you will erase it. Your control is non-existent right now. Naruto pulled his hand back. What's happening to me, Kurama? Tsunade said my chakra is eating itself. She is half right, Kurama grumbled. You unlocked the seal. Not the gate, the seal itself. The spiral represents the mixing of yin and yang to create flow. You distorted it. You created a 0 point. A 0 point? Entropy? Kurama explained, the words sounding ancient and heavy. It is the force that ends things. It is the antithesis of the sage's creation. Right now, I am pumping every ounce of my chakra into your network just to feed the void so it doesn't eat your heart. You are a bucket with a hole in the bottom, and I am the hose. Naruto stared at his hands in the dim light. Can I fix it? No, Kurama said bluntly. You cannot fix a fundamental law of reality. You can only learn to contain it. But Naruto, you need to understand something. What? I am a construct of pure chakra. To me, you are now a cage made of acid. I am burning, Naruto. Every second I am inside you, I am being digested. Naruto felt a pit open in his stomach. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't save us, Kurama snapped, though with less heat than usual. Someone is coming. The toad. A tap on the window. Naruto looked up. Jiraiya was crouching on the sill, balancing effortlessly. The toad sage looked serious. There was no grin. No, I've come to get you for research. Jiraiya pushed the window up and stepped inside. He looked around the dusty apartment. You didn't turn the lights on, Jiraiya observed. Didn't feel like it, Naruto said. Jiraiya sighed. He walked over and sat on the only chair in the room, the wood creaking under his weight. Tsunade told me the diagnosis, Jiraiya said. Anathema. Sounds like a disease, Naruto muttered. It's worse. A disease can be cured. This is a state of being. Jiraiya leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. Naruto, show me your stomach. Naruto stood up and lifted his shirt. Jiraiya narrowed his eyes. Even in the dim light, the seal stood out. The intricate 8-trigram seal, the masterpiece of Minato Namikaze, was gone. In its place was a perfect black circle. It was stark, simple, and terrifying. The skin around it was gray, and the veins radiating from it looked like cracks in porcelain. A closed loop, Jiraiya whispered. The Enso. The what? A Zen symbol. The circle of enlightenment, or the void. But this isn't enlightenment. Jiraiya reached out, then hesitated. He coated his finger in sage chakra, natural energy. He tapped the center of the black circle. Flash. The room plunged into absolute darkness for a split second, as if the light from the street lamp had been swallowed. Jiraiya yanked his hand back. His finger was smoking. It eats nature energy too, Jiraiya hissed, shaking his hand. That complicates things. Complicates what? The training trip? Naruto dropped his shirt. Are we still going? Or are you going to leave me in a cell like a dangerous weapon? Jiraiya looked at the boy. He saw the fear hidden behind the apathy. We are going, Jiraiya said firmly. But the plan has changed. I was going to teach you how to control the fox's chakra. I was going to teach you improved Rasengan. I was going to teach you how to break Genjutsu. And now, Jiraiya stood up, towering over the boy. I have to teach you how to not end the world by sneezing. He walked to the window and looked out at the village. The Hokage faces watched over them. This power, Naruto, it's not a weapon. It's a curse. But it's the only card we have left. The Akatsuki are coming for the tailed beasts. They want to create a weapon of mass destruction. Jiraiya turned back to Naruto, his face grim. If they try to extract the 9 tails from you now, they won't get a monster. They'll pull the plug on a drain that will swallow them whole. We need to leave the village. Tomorrow. Why so soon? Because, Jiraiya gestured to the floor. Naruto looked down. Where he had been standing for the last 5 minutes, the wooden floorboards had turned to gray ash. His footprint was etched into the foundation of the building. You're leaking, Jiraiya said. If you stay here, you'll eventually turn this apartment building into a tomb. We need to go where there are no people. We need the wastelands. Naruto stared at the ash. He realized then that his life as a Konoha shinobi, the ramen-eating, prank-playing, loudmouth ninja, was over. He couldn't be part of the village if the village died just by being near him. Okay, Naruto said softly. I'll pack. The next morning the main gates. The dawn was gray, matching Naruto's mood. The mist clung to the trees surrounding Konoha. Naruto stood at the gates, a small pack on his back. He wore gloves. Black leather gloves Jiraiya had given him, inscribed with suppression seals that burned his skin but kept the null contained to his hands. Jiraiya stood talking to Tsunade and Sakura. Sakura approached Naruto. She looked like she wanted to hug him, but she stopped 3 feet away. She remembered the apple. You're going to be gone for a long time, Sakura said, forcing a smile. 2.5 years, Naruto said. He adjusted the gloves. Pervy Sage says we're going to the demon Count Ayers. Fewer people. Naruto. Sakura stepped closer, fighting her instinct to recoil. About Sasuke. Yeah? We'll bring him back. Together. When you get back, we'll fix this. We'll fix him, and we'll fix whatever this is. She gestured to him. Naruto looked at her. He wanted to believe her. He wanted to believe in the power of friendship and the will of fire. But he could feel the void in his stomach. It was hungry. It didn't care about friendship. It only cared about consumption. I won't bring him back, Sakura, Naruto said. Sakura blinked. What? Naruto looked toward the horizon, toward where Sasuke had gone. I can't bring him back, Naruto said, his voice dropping to a whisper that chilled Sakura to the bone. If I see him again, I have to stop him. And I don't think I can do that without erasing him. Naruto, don't say that. I'm not a savior anymore, Sakura. Naruto turned to her, and a gray ring in his eyes caught the morning light. I'm a disposal unit. He turned and walked through the gates. Let's go, Erosenin, he called out, not looking back. Jiraiya exchanged a worried glance with Tsunade. Keep him safe, Jiraiya, Tsunade whispered. And keep us safe from him. I'll try, Jiraiya said. The Toad Sage followed his student. As they walked away down the dirt road, Sakura watched them go. She raised a hand to wave, but stopped. Behind Naruto, with every step he took, the grass on the side of the road didn't bend. It withered. A trail of gray footprints marked his path, a scar on the earth that whispered a terrifying truth. Naruto Uzumaki had left the village. But the Void Walker had just begun his journey. The Land of Wind was known for its sandstorms, its scorching heat, and its unforgiving expanse of dunes. But in a remote canyon near the border of the River Nation, the heat had vanished. The sun beat down relentlessly from a cloudless blue sky, but the air in the canyon was frigid. It wasn't the crisp cold of winter, it was the stagnant, biting chill of a deep cave. Jiraiya, one of the legendary Sannin, sat on a ridge overlooking the canyon floor. He held a pair of binoculars to his eyes, his knuckles white as he gripped them. He wasn't looking for enemies, he was watching his student. Down below, Naruto Uzumaki sat in a meditative lotus position. He was 17 years old now. He had grown taller, his shoulders broader, losing the softness of childhood. But the vibrant orange jumpsuit was gone. He wore black cargo pants and a dark gray mesh shirt, over which he wore a heavy, hooded cloak that looked like it was woven from coarse hemp. His hands were encased in thick, black leather gloves covered in glowing red seal script. Breath in, Jiraiya whispered to himself, watching the boy. Just breathe, kid. Naruto took a breath. Around him, a circle of dead earth had formed. It was a perfect geometric circle, 20 meters in diameter. Within that circle, the red sandstone of the canyon floor had been bleached white, then turned to a fine, gray powder that defied the wind. For 2.5 years they had traveled. They had avoided major villages. They had avoided roads. They lived in the wild, moving only when the environment around them began to die. They were nomads of the apocalypse. The first year, the failure of tradition, the training trip had started with hope. Jiraiya had been convinced that this null state was simply a blockage, a mutation of the seal that could be overcome with enough control. He treated it like a clogged pipe. He was wrong. They had started with water walking exercises in a remote swamp in the Land of Rain. Control your chakra flow, Naruto. Jiraiya had shouted from the bank. Don't push it out. Circulate it to the soles of your feet. Naruto had tried. He stood on the water's surface, his face scrunching in concentration. He molded his chakra. Hiss. The water didn't support him. It didn't ripple. The moment his chakra-infused soles touched the surface, the water molecules simply ceased to bind. Naruto sank like a stone, plunging into the muck. When he surfaced, gasping for air, the water around him was bubbling, not with heat, but with a strange, silent effervescence as the liquid evaporated into nothingness. The fish in the pond floated to the surface, not dead, but empty, their scales turned to gray ash, dissolving into the water. It doesn't work, pervy sage! Naruto had yelled, dragging himself onto the mud. I can't stick to it. The chakra eats the water. Then came the shadow clones. The shadow clone is your signature jutsu, Jiraiya had argued around a campfire that night. It splits your chakra evenly. If we can split the void, maybe we can dilute it. Naruto stood up and performed the hand sign. The familiar cross shape. Shadow clone jutsu. Poof. Smoke erupted. But it wasn't the white smoke of a standard jutsu. It was black smoke, heavy and oily. 2 clones appeared. They looked like Naruto, but their eyes were completely black. Okay, Jiraiya said, wary. Now have them spar. The clones moved. They lunged at each other. Their fists connected. Usually, a clone pops when hit. These didn't pop. When the fists of the 2 void clones connected, a singularity formed. A micro-black hole the size of a marble snapped into existence between their knuckles. Vroom! A vacuum pulse knocked Jiraiya off his log. The campfire was sucked in and extinguished instantly. The trees bending toward the center of the blast. When the dust settled, the clones were gone. Naruto was lying on his back, bleeding from his nose. Did you get the memories? Jiraiya asked, helping him up. Naruto looked at him with hollow eyes. No. I just felt cold. I felt like I was drowning. Jiraiya realized then that traditional ninjutsu was impossible. The shadow clone divides experience. The null clones divided existence. When they collided, they cancelled each other out. The second year, the curse of touch. By the second year, the isolation had set in. They couldn't stay in inns. The bedsheets would disintegrate by morning. The food would lose its nutritional value before Naruto could swallow it. Naruto stopped hugging people. He stopped shaking hands. He stopped touching anything he didn't intend to destroy. Jiraiya had to commission special gloves from a seal master in the Land of Iron, a master who worked with hazardous materials. The gloves were lined with lead and inscribed with suppression seals usually used for transporting unstable chakra ores. These will keep the field contained to your body, Jiraiya had said, handing them to Naruto. Naruto put them on. He flexed his fingers. I can't feel anything through them, that's the point. The training shifted. If Naruto couldn't use ninjutsu without erasing the landscape, and he couldn't use genjutsu because he had no chakra control, there was only taijutsu. But even that was lethal. During a spar in a rocky valley, Naruto had instinctively dodged a strike from Jiraiya and countered with a palm thrust to a boulder behind him. He didn't shatter the rock. His hand went through it. Like a hot knife through butter, his gloved hand sank into the granite. The rock didn't crack. It turned to dust around his wrist. When he pulled his hand back, there was a perfect, smooth tunnel through the stone. You ignore durability, Jiraiya had noted, writing in his notebook. Defense is irrelevant against you. Armor, rock, steel, it all turns to ash. You are the ultimate spear, Naruto. But you have no shield, and that was the problem. Naruto could destroy anything he touched, but he was physically human. A kunai could still stab him. A fire jutsu could still burn him, if he didn't erase it first. He was a glass cannon that shot antimatter. Present day, the canyon. Naruto! Jiraiya called out from the ridge. That's enough meditation. Come up here! Naruto opened his eyes. The gray ring in his irises spun slowly before fading back to blue. He stood up. He didn't walk up the path. He walked straight to the canyon wall. He punched his hands into the solid rock, creating handholds where none existed, climbing the vertical cliff by erasing the stone to create a ladder. He vaulted over the lip of the ridge and landed beside Jiraiya. He didn't sweat. He didn't pant. Hungry? Jiraiya asked, holding out a ration bar. Naruto looked at it. Is it the compressed kind? Yeah. Only thing that stays solid in your stomach long enough to digest. Naruto took the bar. He unwrapped it carefully with his gloved hands. He ate quickly, like a soldier fueling an engine, finding no joy in the taste. So, Naruto said, wiping crumbs from his mouth. What's the plan for today? More meditation? More trying not to exist? No, Jiraiya said. His face was serious. We're done with avoidance. Naruto stiffened. What do you mean? We've spent 2 years trying to suppress this power, Jiraiya said. We've treated it like a leak. But we haven't tried to go to the source. Jiraiya pointed a finger at Naruto's stomach. The nine tails. Naruto took a step back. You're crazy. Every time I get angry, the null gets worse. If I tap into the fox's chakra, I have a theory, Jiraiya interrupted. The null is a shell. It's a mutation of the seal, creating a barrier of entropy around the core. But the fox is pure, condensed chakra. Massive amounts of it. If we can force the fox's chakra to surge through the null, maybe the sheer volume can wash away the entropy. Like flushing a pipe with a fire hose. Or, Naruto said quietly, it could cause an explosion that wipes the land of wind off the map. I've set up a barrier, Jiraiya said, gesturing to the 4 corners of the canyon. Top-level Fuinjutsu. If it goes wrong, I can suppress it. I have the key to the seal. Jiraiya pulled out a scroll. It was the key Minato had left with the toads. The paper was charred at the edges from the last time they tried to use it, but the ink was still legible. Naruto, Jiraiya said softly. We're running out of time. The Akatsuki are moving. Gaara. I've had reports. There is movement in the sand. If they come for you, you can't fight them with just taijutsu. You need power. Real power. Naruto looked at his gloved hands. He thought of Sasuke. He thought of the look of terror on Sasuke's face at the waterfall. Okay, Naruto whispered. Let's do it. The incident. They moved to the center of the canyon. Jiraiya placed suppression tags on Naruto's forehead and chest. I'm going to use the key to loosen the 4-symbol seal, Jiraiya explained. I want you to mentally reach out to the fox. Don't ask for chakra. Demand it. Pull it out. Naruto nodded. He closed his eyes. He sank into his mind. The sewer was frozen. The water was black ice. The pipes were covered in gray frost. Naruto walked to the cage. Inside, the Nine-Tails was sleeping. Or pretending to. The massive fox was curled into a ball, its tails wrapped tight around its nose. The great golden gate had turned a dull, rusted iron color. The seal paper was a black circle. Kurama, Naruto called out. The fox's ear twitched. One red eye opened. It wasn't the eye of a predator. It was the eye of a prisoner on death row. Go away, brat, Kurama grumbled. I'm trying to conserve energy. We're trying something, Naruto said. Jiraiya is going to loosen the seal. I need you to push chakra out. Kurama's eye widened. He stood up, towering over Naruto. Are you insane? The fox roared. Do not open that gate. The seal is the only thing keeping the void distinct from my core. If you open it, you don't let me out, you let it in. We have to try. Naruto shouted back. I'm useless like this. I'm just a walking grave. I need your power. My power? Kurama laughed, a bitter, barking sound. You think you have power? You have a disease. If you pull on my chakra, you will feed the hunger. Don't do it, Naruto. Outside, in the real world, Jiraiya twisted the key. Open. Click. Inside the mindscape, the gate groaned. The black circle seal spun. The doors creaked open an inch. Now! Jiraiya shouted. Naruto ignored Kurama's warning. He reached through the bars. He grabbed the red chakra. No! Kurama screamed. Stop! Naruto pulled. An explosion of red chakra flooded Naruto's system. In the canyon, the ground cracked. A geyser of red energy erupted from Naruto's body. The suppression tags on his chest burned away instantly. Yes! Jiraiya cheered, shielding his eyes against the wind. The chakra is breaking through. It's red. It's not gray. For a moment, it looked like it was working. The familiar cloak of the Nine-Tails formed. 1 tail. 2 tails. 3 tails. Naruto roared, dropping to all fours. The red chakra boiled, melting the rock beneath him. But then, the sound changed. The roar of the chakra, which sounded like a raging fire, suddenly dropped in pitch. It became a low, vibrating drone. VVVVVVVVVMMM. Jiraiya's smile vanished. The red cloak began to darken. It didn't turn black like ink. It lost its luminance. It turned the color of dried blood, then charcoal, then nothing. The null had woken up. And it had just been fed a massive meal. The 3 tails of chakra didn't retract it. They collapsed. They turned into tendrils of absolute void. Naruto threw his head back. He opened his mouth to scream, but no sound came out. The sound waves were eaten before they left his throat. The 4-tailed form appeared, but it wasn't the beast of blood and bone Jiraiya had seen before. It was a silhouette. Naruto was a hole in the world in the shape of a monster. He was a walking shadow, 3-dimensional but visually flat because light couldn't reflect off him. Naruto! Suppress it! Jiraiya yelled, running forward. He slapped a seal onto the ground. Barrier Jutsu, Toad Gourd Prison! A barrier sprang up around Naruto. The shadow beast turned its head. It looked at the barrier. It swiped a claw. The barrier didn't shatter. The section of the barrier the claw touched simply vanished. The creature inhaled. It was a metaphorical inhale, but the physical effect was devastating. A vacuum formed. Crack boom. The air in the canyon rushed toward Naruto to fill the void he was creating. A massive implosion rocked the earth. Trees on the rim of the canyon were uprooted and sucked in. Boulders were dragged across the ground. Jiraiya dug his feet into the earth, using chakra to stick to the ground, but he felt his grips slipping. It's not just chakra! Jiraiya realized in horror. He's eating the atmosphere. The shadow beast roared again, a silent, psychic scream that hit Jiraiya like a physical hammer. The creature lunged. Not at Jiraiya, but at the world. It slammed its paws into the ground. A shockwave of gray expanded outward. Wherever the gray wave touched, reality unraveled. The sandstone turned to sand, the sand turned to dust, the dust turned to atoms. I have to stop him. Jiraiya bit his thumb. Summoning Jutsu. Gamabunta. Poof. The massive boss toad appeared, pipe in mouth. Jiraiya! What is the big-eyed? Gamabunta froze. He looked down at the black silhouette tearing the world apart. What in the sage's name is that? Gamabunta croaked, drawing his blade. I feel sick. The nature energy here, it's screaming. Hold him down, Bunta! I need to reapply the seal. Hold him? I don't want to touch him. But the boss toad was a warrior. He leaped, bringing his massive blade down on the shadow beast. The blade connected, or it tried to. The tip of the massive steel sword touched the shadow's back. Ting! There was no clang of metal. The tip of the sword dissolved. The disintegration traveled up the blade at terrifying speed. Drop it! Jiraiya screamed. Gamabunta released the hilt just as the handle turned to dust. The massive toad scrambled backward, crashing into the canyon wall. My sword! He ate my sword! The shadow beast turned toward Jiraiya. It had no eyes, but Jiraiya felt it looking at him. It raised a claw. Naruto! Jiraiya shouted, his voice cracking. Look at me! It's Ero Sennin! Don't let it win! The beast paused. Inside the void deep within the seal, Naruto was floating in nothingness. He was cold. So cold. Naruto, he heard a voice. A small, weak voice. Naruto turned in the darkness. He saw Kurama. The mighty Ninetails was no longer mighty. The fox was shrunken, the size of a regular wolf. His fur was dull and patchy. He was shivering violently. The cage was gone, dissolved by the influx of power. Kurama was clinging to Naruto's leg. Please, the fox whined, tears of pure chakra leaking from his eyes. Please stop pulling. If you pull anymore, I will die. I don't mean return to the chakra stream. I mean cease to be. I am terrified, Naruto. I have never been afraid of dying, but I am afraid of this. I am afraid of the Zero. Naruto looked down at the demon who had ruined his life. The monster who killed his parents, and he saw a victim. Kurama, close the gate, Kurama begged. Lock me up. I will never ask to leave again. I will give you rent. I will do anything. Just close the door to the emptiness. Naruto felt a surge of pity and shame. I'm sorry, Naruto whispered. He closed his eyes and clamped down on his emotions. He visualized the seal. He visualized the key. Lock. Outside, the shadow beast convulsed. The vacuum stopped. The gray shockwave halted. The blackness receded, sucking back into Naruto's stomach like ink down a drain. Naruto collapsed. The silence returned to the canyon. But it was a different silence. Jiraiya stood up, dusting himself off. He looked around. Half the canyon was gone. Not destroyed, gone. The landscape had been altered. A perfect semicircle, 300 meters wide, had been carved out of the earth, leaving a smooth, polished crater. Gamabunta sat against the wall, staring at the empty air where his sword used to be. Jiraiya, the toad said, his voice grave. Do not summon me to fight that thing again. If that boy enters the toad realm, he would eat the oil falls. Jiraiya walked down into the crater. He approached Naruto. Naruto was curled in a fetal position, shivering. His clothes were shredded, but his skin was unblemished. Jiraiya knelt and placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder. He hesitated, half expecting his hand to disappear, but the boy was solid. I heard him, Naruto whispered into the dirt. Who? Kurama. Naruto looked up, his eyes red and raw. He begged me, pervy sage. He begged me to stop killing him. Jiraiya closed his eyes. The plan was a failure. The tailed beast's power was not a solution, it was fuel for the fire. I see, Jiraiya said heavily. Then we have one option left. Mount Myaboku, the enemy of nature. A week later, Jiraiya had made a decision. If internal energy, chakra, fed the void, perhaps external energy, nature energy, could balance it. Nature energy was life itself. It was abundant, omnipresent. Maybe, just maybe, Sage Mode could fill the hole in Naruto's soul. He decided to take Naruto to Mount Myaboku. They stood in a clearing in the Fire Nation, ready for the reverse summoning. Are you sure about this? Naruto asked. He looked worse than ever. His skin was pale, his eyes sunken. He wore a new pair of gloves. It's the only way, Jiraiya said. If you can learn to harness nature energy, you might be able to coat the void. To create a buffer of life around the death. Jiraiya performed the hand signs. He placed his hand on Naruto's shoulder. Reverse summoning jutsu. Poof, the world shifted. The green forests of the Fire Nation were replaced by the vibrant, oversized flora of the Mount Myaboku. Giant rhubarb leaves blocked the sun. The air was thick and sweet. Naruto landed on the soft moss. So this is the home of the toads? Naruto asked, looking around. For a moment, it was beautiful. Then, the world reacted to him. It started with the moss under his feet. It turned brown instantly, then gray, then crumbled to dust. The giant leaf shading him curled up and withered, dropping dead flakes onto his head. A bird that was singing in the tree above stopped mid-note, and fell dead from the branch, its life force simply extinguished by proximity. What? Naruto stepped back. Where he stepped, a flower garden turned to ash. Jiraiya-chan, a small green toad with a white beard hopped forward. Pa, the elder toad Fukasaku, welcome back, wait. Fukasaku stopped. He sniffed the air. His eyes bulged. What is that stench? Fukasaku gagged. It smells like the end of time. It's the boy, Jiraiya said, stepping forward. Pa, this is Naruto. Minato's son. We need help. We need to teach him Sage Mode. Fukasaku looked at Naruto. The old toad trembled. Sage Mode? Fukasaku exclaimed. Jiraiya-chan, are you mad? Look around him. Naruto was standing still, but a circle of death was expanding from him. The grass was dying in a wave, moving outward at a foot per second. Nature energy is fleeing him. Ma-shima hopped down from a tree, landing beside Pa. She looked terrified. I can see it. The energy of the mountain is pulling away. It's creating a vacuum. That's why we're here. Jiraiya pleaded. If he can learn to draw it in. He can't draw it in. Fukasaku snapped. To use Sage Mode, you must become one with nature. You must find harmony. This boy, he is the enemy of nature. He is a wound in the world. If he tries to pull nature energy into that thing inside him, he won't enter Sage Mode. He will suck the life out of this entire mountain. Naruto looked at his hands. He saw the gray ring of dead grass. He saw the toads backing away from him. I'm poison, Naruto whispered. Get him out. Gamabunta's booming voice echoed from the giant shrine. The boss toad refused to even come close. Get him out before he kills the crops. Before he dries up the oil. Jiraiya looked at the elders. Please. There has to be a prophecy. The Great Toad Sage. The Great Toad Sage is asleep, Fukasaku said. And he has been having nightmares. Nightmares of a black sun that eats the sky. We thought it was a metaphor for Madara. It was him. Fukasaku pointed a webbed finger at Naruto. Take him away, Jiraiya. He is not welcome here. This is a holy place of life. He is anathema. Jiraiya looked at Naruto. He expected the boy to argue. To yell. To say he would prove them wrong. Naruto just nodded. Let's go, Erosenin, Naruto said quietly. Before I kill anything else. Naruto, take me back. Jiraiya swallowed the lump in his throat. He performed the reverse summon. Poof, they were gone. The spot where Naruto had stood remained, a perfect gray circle of dead earth in the middle of paradise, a scar that would never grow back. The aftermath. Back in the human world, the sun was setting. Naruto sat on a log, which was slowly rotting beneath him. He stared at the fire. Jiraiya sat opposite him. He felt old. He had failed Minato. He had failed the village. And now, he had failed the boy. No ninjutsu, Naruto listed, counting on his gloved fingers. No genjutsu. No bija power. No Sage Mode. He looked at Jiraiya. I have nothing. You have me, Jiraiya said, though it sounded hollow. Naruto shook his head. You saw the toads. You saw Kurama. Everyone is scared of me. Even the grass hates me. He clenched his fist. I'm not going to be Hokage, am I? It was the question Jiraiya had been dreading. The dream that had fueled Naruto for his entire life. Jiraiya looked at the fire. He thought about the responsibilities of a Kage. To protect. To build. To nurture. Naruto couldn't build. He could only erase. Maybe not the Hokage we thought you would be, Jiraiya said carefully. Naruto laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. It's okay, pervy sage. You don't have to lie. Naruto stood up. He walked to the edge of the camp, looking out into the darkness. If I can't be the shield, Naruto whispered to the night, then I'll be the sword. If I can't save the world, I'll just erase the people who try to hurt it. He looked at his hand. He visualized the Akatsuki. He visualized Sasuke. I'm going to master this, pervy sage, Naruto said, his voice hardening. Not how to stop it, but how to aim it. Jiraiya looked at the boy's back. He saw the silhouette of the destroyer. Naruto, teach me to fight without chakra, Naruto said, turning around. His blue eyes were cold, the gray ring prominent. Teach me to move so fast they can't run. Teach me to hit them once, because one hit is all I need. Jiraiya nodded slowly. The dream of the playful sage was dead. The training of the assassin had begun. All right, Jiraiya said. Tomorrow, we start conditioning. We're going to turn you into a ghost. The fire crackled, and a spark flew toward Naruto. Before it could touch him, it winked out of existence. The void was hungry, and Naruto was going to learn how to feed it. The Tenchi Bridge spanned a deep, rocky chasm, a slender artery of wood and rope connecting the grass country to the sprawling forests of the Fire Nation. The wind here was fierce, howling through the gorge with a hollow, mournful sound. It rattled the wooden planks and made the suspension cables groan. Team Kakashi, now temporarily Team Yamato, hid in the underbrush several hundred meters away. Yamato, the ANBU captain chosen for his unique genetic ability to suppress the tailed beast, crouched behind a boulder. His eyes were fixed on the bridge, but his attention was split. Every few seconds, his gaze darted to the figure standing 20 feet to his left. Naruto Uzumaki stood alone. He wasn't crouching. He wasn't hiding in the foliage. He stood in a small clearing where the bushes had mysteriously withered into gray straw. He wore a heavy black cloak with the hood pulled up, obscuring his face. His hands were encased in thick, seal-inscribed leather gloves. Sakura Haruno was positioned between Yamato and Naruto. She looked torn. Her eyes lingered on Naruto's back with a mixture of longing and apprehension. She remembered the boy who used to wear bright orange and shout about ramen. That boy felt like a dream she had once had. This figure, this was a ghost. And then there was Sai, the new recruit from Root. He sat on a branch, sketching in his book. He looked from Naruto to the dead circle of grass around him, then back to his paper. He sketched a black circle. The wind is changing, Yamato whispered, tapping his comms unit. Captain Sasori, I will move into position. You three wait for the signal. Understood, Sakura whispered back. Naruto didn't speak. He just nodded, a barely perceptible dip of his hooded head. Yamato swallowed. He had read the files. He had spoken to Jiraiya. The boy is a walking singularity, Jiraiya had warned. Do not use wood style on him unless you want to lose the limb you cast it with. Yamato transformed. In a puff of smoke, he became Sasori of the Red Sand, the puppet master of the Akatsuki. He stepped out of cover and walked onto the bridge, the wooden planks creaking under his weight. The weight was agonizing. 10 minutes later, a figure emerged from the mist on the other side. Kabuto Yakushi. The spy. From the bushes, Naruto watched. His blue eyes, ringed with that unsettling gray halo, tracked Kabuto's movements. He felt nothing. No anger. No excitement. Just a cold, heavy pressure in his stomach where the seal used to be. The void was dormant, but it was always hungry. The signal, Sai whispered, his fake smile dropping for a moment of genuine focus. On the bridge, the conversation had turned sour. Orochimaru had appeared. The snake Sannin had emerged from the forest like a nightmare made flesh, shattering Yamato's disguise. Go! Yamato shouted, leaping back as a massive snake lunged at him. Team 7 sprang into action. Sakura launched herself forward, chakra concentrating in her fist. Sai summoned ink lions. Naruto simply walked out of the clearing. He didn't run. He didn't execute a ninja dash. He walked toward the bridge with the inevitability of a glacier. As he passed the tree, The bark turned gray and flaked off in the wind. The serpent and the void. Orochimaru stood in the center of the bridge, his yellow slit eyes gleaming with amusement. He had easily dodged Sakura's earth-shattering punch, which had decimated the rocky outcrop at the bridge's anchor. He had sliced through sizing beasts with a wave of wind. My, Orochimaru hissed, his tongue darting out to taste the air. The Leaf Village is getting desperate. Sending children to do a Sanin's job? And where is Kakashi? Still in the hospital? Yamato landed on the debris, panting. We are enough to take you down, Orochimaru. Are you? Orochimaru chuckled. You have a medic, a root drone, and a failed experiment. He looked at Yamato. And oh? Orochimaru's gaze shifted. He looked past them, toward the figure walking slowly across the broken stones. Naruto-kun, Orochimaru purred. A twisted smile spread across his pale face. It's been a long time. You've grown. And you've changed your wardrobe. Orange was so loud, Naruto stopped 10 meters away. The wind whipped his cloak, but the hood stayed up. Where is he? Naruto asked. His voice was low, flat, and carried no inflection. It wasn't a demand, it was a query. Sasuke-kun? Orochimaru laughed. He is where he belongs. Ascending to heights you could never reach. He speaks of you often, you know. He calls you his weakness. He is eager to sever that bond completely. Usually, this was the trigger. Usually, Naruto would scream. The red chakra would bubble. The rage would explode. Naruto slowly lifted his gloved hands. He undid the clasp of his cloak and let it fall to the ground. Underneath, he wore a simple black combat uniform, tight-fitting and utilitarian. He doesn't have to worry, Naruto said softly. The bond is already gone. Orochimaru blinked. He tilted his head. Oh? Have you finally given up? How disappointing. I was hoping to see the Nine Tails again. You want to see the beast? Naruto looked up. For the first time, Orochimaru saw the eyes. The Sannin felt a chill run down his spine. It wasn't the killing intent he was used to. He had faced wars, demons, and gods. He knew fear. But this was different. Naruto's eyes were dead. Not dead like a corpse, but dead like a star that had burned out. I don't use the beast anymore, Naruto said. He's busy keeping me alive. Is that so? Orochimaru raised a sleeve. Then let's see what you do use. Hidden shadow snake hands. A dozen venomous snakes erupted from Orochimaru's sleeve. They extended rapidly, fangs dripping with deadly poison, aiming for Naruto's throat and limbs. Sakura screamed, Naruto, dodge. Naruto didn't move. He didn't weave a hand sign. He didn't draw a kunai. He just stood there. The snakes struck. Silence. There was no sound of impact. No wet thud of fangs hitting flesh. The moment the leading snake's nose touched the air 3 inches from Naruto's chest, it didn't stop. It vanished. It was as if an invisible sphere surrounded Naruto. As the snakes crossed that threshold, they turned instantly into fine gray dust. The momentum carried the dust forward, washing over Naruto like a harmless puff of smoke. The snakes behind them followed suit. One by one, they entered the kill zone and were unmade. Orochimaru watched as his summoned creatures disintegrated. The connection he had with them, the sensory feedback, cut off abruptly. It wasn't pain, it was simply a lack of data. What? Orochimaru narrowed his eyes. What did you do? I didn't do anything, Naruto said. He took a step forward. The dust on the ground swirled away from his boots. They touched me. Things that touch me don't last. Orochimaru frowned. Intriguing. He spat out the sword of Kusanagi. The legendary blade capable of cutting through diamond extended from his mouth. He grasped the hilt. Let's test the limits of this defense, Orochimaru hissed. He launched himself forward. He was fast, Sannin speed. He closed the gap in a blink, thrusting the sword directly at Naruto's heart. Captain Yamato! Sakura yelled. Yamato was already moving. Wood style, cutting jutsu, wooden spikes erupted from the ground, aiming to intercept Orochimaru, to knock him off balance. But Orochimaru was too fast. The blade was inches from Naruto's chest. Naruto raised his left hand. He caught the blade. He didn't catch the flat of the blade. He caught the tip. Directly into his palm. Orochimaru grinned, expecting the blade to pierce the hand, the arm, and the heart. Crunch. It wasn't the sound of bone breaking. It was the sound of reality fracturing. The tip of the kusanagi touched the leather glove. The glove disintegrated instantly. Then, Naruto's bare palm touched the divine steel. The kusanagi, a sword that had existed for centuries, a sword that was practically indestructible, stopped. From the point of contact, a gray corruption spread up the metal. The steel lost its shine. It turned brittle. It turned to rust. It turned to dust. Orochimaru's eyes widened to the size of saucers. He watched the disintegration race up the blade toward his hand at terrifying speed. Impossible! Orochimaru released the hilt and backflipped away, putting 20 meters between them. The hilt of the kusanagi clattered to the ground. The blade was gone. Just a pile of gray filings at Naruto's feet. Naruto looked at his bare left hand. There was a red mark where the sword had pressed against his skin, but no blood. The sword had been erased faster than it could cut him. You! Orochimaru stared at the pile of dust. That was the kusanagi. It is made of the hardest ore in existence. It is reinforced with high-density chakra. Chakra, Naruto muttered, looking at his hand. It's all just food. He looked up at Orochimaru. Is that it? Is that all the power you have? I thought you were supposed to be scary. The taunt hit Orochimaru harder than any punch. It wasn't delivered with arrogance. It was delivered with boredom, the terror of the wood. Yamato watched the exchange with his mouth open. He looked at the wooden spikes he had summoned. They were near Naruto's feet. Captain Yamato, Sai said, appearing beside him. Your wood. Yamato looked down. The spikes he had created weren't green and brown anymore. They were gray. The rot was traveling backward, down into the earth, moving along the root network he had created underground. Cancel it. Yamato panicked. He formed the seal to dispel the jutsu. Usually, the wood would retract or turn into harmless logs. Instead, the connection snapped. Yamato felt a sharp, freezing pain in his chest, as if a piece of his soul had been bitten off. Gah! Yamato dropped to one knee, clutching his chest. Captain? Sakura rushed to him. What's wrong? My chakra. Yamato gasped, sweating profusely. The wood, it didn't just die. It was deleted. And because I was still connected to it, it took some of me with it. He looked up at Naruto with genuine fear. He's not controlling it, Yamato whispered. He's just standing there, and the world is dying around him. Sakura, do not get close to him. Do not try to heal him. Do you understand? Sakura looked at Naruto's solitary figure on the bridge. But, he's our teammate. He's a black hole, Sai noted, his face devoid of emotion but his voice tight. Logic dictates we retreat. He is indiscriminate, the monster revealed. Orochimaru was a scientist. His fear was always secondary to his curiosity. But now, the scales were tipping. Fascinating, Orochimaru murmured, though he kept his distance. It seems the seal Minato placed on you has mutated. Or perhaps, it broke? No, if it broke, the fox would be out. This is something else. You are channeling the void between dimensions. I don't care what you call it, Naruto said. He took another step. Kabuto! Orochimaru barked. Kabuto, who had been hiding behind Orochimaru, flinched. Lord Orochimaru, attack him from range. Use wind style. Don't touch him. Kabuto adjusted his glasses. He looked terrified. He had seen the sword. Yes, my lord. Kabuto wove signs. Wind style, great breakthrough. A massive gust of wind, razor sharp, blasted toward Naruto. Naruto didn't dodge. He raised his right hand, the one still gloved, and made a clawing motion. He didn't block the wind. He tore it. Naruto swiped his hand through the air. The null dragged behind his fingers like black ribbons. When the black ribbons hit the wind blast, the wind jutsu collapsed. It was a physics violation. The air pressure dropped to zero instantly. The vacuum created by Naruto's swipe was stronger than the jutsu. The wind was sucked into the tear in reality and vanished. Naruto kept walking. Orochimaru felt a bead of sweat roll down his temple. This boy. He defied every law of ninjutsu Orochimaru had spent 50 years studying. You couldn't kill him with weapons. You couldn't kill him with elements. You couldn't touch him. You want Sasuke? Orochimaru asked, his voice rising, cracking slightly. He is far stronger than this. He has the Sharingan. He can see your moves. He can see me, Naruto said, stopping 5 meters away. But he can't touch me either. Naruto lowered his stance. Give him back. Or what? Or I'll erase you. Naruto opened his mouth. He didn't roar. He didn't scream. He exhaled. A cloud of gray mist expelled from his lips. It wasn't poison. It was pure entropy, the waste product of his internal reactor. The mist rolled toward Orochimaru. Orochimaru's survival instincts screamed. Death. Absolute death. The Sannin didn't hesitate. He slammed his hands onto the ground, summoning triple Rashomon. 3 massive steel gates, demonic faces carved into them, erupted from the ground between him and Naruto. These were the ultimate defense. They had stopped tailed beast bombs. Naruto didn't stop. He walked into the mist. He walked up to the first gate. He placed his bare left hand on the steel. Open. The steel groaned. It didn't bend. It didn't melt. It rusted. In a split second, the massive gate turned into a towering wall of orange flakes. The structure failed. The gate collapsed into a pile of dust. Naruto walked through the dust cloud. He reached the second gate. He didn't even slow down. He punched it. His fist went through the 2-foot-thick steel like it was wet paper. A perfect circular hole appeared. The structural integrity shattered, and the second gate crumbled. The third gate. Orochimaru was already running. He had abandoned dignity. He was sprinting toward the forest on the far side of the bridge. Naruto walked through the third gate, leaving a tunnel of nothingness in his wake. He stepped onto the far side of the bridge. Orochimaru was gone. He had used the distraction of the gates to slip into the earth, to flee like the snake he was. Naruto stopped. He looked at the forest where Orochimaru had vanished. He could chase him. He could track the heat signature, or simply destroy the entire forest until he found him. But he stopped. He looked down at his left hand. The skin was graying. The null was starting to eat him again. He had used too much. Naruto fell to his knees. He gasped, coughing up more of the gray dust. Close it. He wheezed. He grabbed his wrist with his gloved hand. He focused on the image of the circle. He focused on containing the leak. The gray color in his skin slowly receded. The air around him, which had been freezing, began to warm up slightly. Naruto slumped forward, his forehead resting on the dirt. The gap. Sakura, Yamato, and Sai crossed the bridge. They moved cautiously, stepping over the piles of rust that used to be the Rashomon gates. They found Naruto kneeling in the dirt. Naruto? Sakura called out softly. Naruto didn't look up. Did he get away? Yes, Yamato said. He kept his distance, eyeing the boy warily. He fled. I've never seen Orochimaru run from a fight before. He wasn't running from a fight, Sai corrected, closing his sketchbook. He was running from an execution. Sakura walked up to Naruto. She saw his trembling shoulders. She saw the bare hand, red and raw from the exposure to his own power. Naruto, your hand. She reached into her pouch for a bandage. Let me. No! Naruto snapped, pulling his hand away and tucking it against his chest. Don't touch it, Sakura. It's still active. If you touch me, you'll lose your fingers. Sakura froze. Her hand hovered in the air. She looked at his face. He looked exhausted. He looked like a man who was carrying the weight of the world, and the weight was crushing him. Here, Naruto said, nodding to his discarded glove lying a few feet away. Just toss me the glove. Sakura picked up the heavy leather glove. It felt cold. She tossed it to him. Naruto caught it with his right hand and shimmied it onto his left, grimacing as the suppression seals burned his skin. Thanks, he muttered. He stood up. He swayed slightly, but when Yamato moved to support him, Naruto held up a hand to stop him. I'm fine, Naruto said. Just hungry. Hungry? Sai asked. Not for food, Naruto said, staring at the empty space where the Kusanagi sword used to be. It's never full. Yamato looked at the destruction. He looked at the bridge, which was miraculously still standing despite the chaos. We failed the mission, Yamato said. We lost the spy. We lost Orochimaru. And we have no lead on Sasuke. We have a lead, Naruto said. He pointed to the ground. There, in the mud, was a snake. A small white snake, left behind in Orochimaru's panic. It was frozen, dead from the cold aura Naruto had emitted. He was scared, Naruto said. He made mistakes. Orochimaru doesn't make mistakes unless he's terrified. Naruto looked at the dead snake. He saw what I am. He knows I can't be his vessel. He knows if he tries to take my body, he'll just cease to exist. Naruto turned to his team. That changes everything. He won't hunt me anymore. He'll try to destroy me from a distance. And that means he'll send Sasuke, Sakura gasped. He would send Sasuke to kill you? He'll try, Naruto said. The gray ring in his eyes flared for a second. But he doesn't understand. Sasuke can't kill me either. Why? Sai asked. Because you're immortal? No, Naruto said, picking up his cloak and dusting it off. Because you can't kill something that's already dead. He threw the cloak over his shoulders and pulled up the hood. Let's go. We need to find his hideout before he moves again. Naruto began to walk. The path ahead of him cleared as debris withered away. Sakura watched him go. She felt a tear roll down her cheek. He's not dead, Naruto, she whispered to herself. But as she looked at the trail of ash he left behind, she wasn't so sure. The Naruto she knew, the boy of sunshine and hope, had died in the Valley of the End. What had walked back out of the waterfall was something else entirely. Something lonely. Something dangerous. Sakura, Yamato said gently. We have to move. Right. Sakura wiped her face. She hardened her expression. Right. Team 7 moved out, following the Void Walker into the shadows of the grass country. Somewhere underground, Orochimaru burst out of the ground in his hideout, miles away from the bridge. He collapsed onto the stone floor, gasping for air. His body was shaking. Kabuto, who had arrived moments before, rushed to him. Lord Orochimaru. Are you injured? Injured? Orochimaru laughed, a high, manic sound. He held up his hands. They were trembling. No, Kabuto. I am not injured. I am enlightened. He stood up, walking to his laboratory table. He swept the scrolls and beakers onto the floor in a fit of rage. All my research! Orochimaru screamed. Immortality. The transfer of the soul. The preservation of the self. It is all meaningless, my lord? Orochimaru turned to Kabuto, his eyes wide with madness. I saw it, Kabuto. I looked into the abyss. Naruto Uzumaki, he is the end of the road. There is no jutsu that can stop him. There is no barrier that can hold him. He is the great filter. Orochimaru paced the room. If I take Sasuke's body, if I gain the Sharingan, it won't matter. If that boy touches me, I am gone. No pure land. No resurrection. Just zero. What do we do? Kabuto asked, his own face pale. Orochimaru stopped pacing. He looked down a dark hallway. The hallway that led to Sasuke's room. We accelerate the plan, Orochimaru hissed. Sasuke must be ready. He must be strong enough to kill Naruto from a distance. With fire. With lightning. With anything that doesn't require contact. Orochimaru licked his lips, but the taste of fear lingered. And if Sasuke cannot kill him, Orochimaru whispered, then we must pray that the boy destroys himself before he swallows the world. Down the hall, in the dark, Sasuke Uchiha sat on his bed. He sharpened his sword. Scrape. 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 He didn't know what had happened at the bridge. But suddenly, the curse seal on his neck pulsed. Not with power, but with a warning that the predator was coming.